The numbers just dropped, and they are damning. Youth crime in England is not just rising. It is accelerating in ways that should alarm every parent, every MP, and everyone who thought the system was working. The latest youth justice statistics for 2023 to 2024, released by the Ministry of Justice in January 2025, reveal a pattern Westminster does not want to talk about. Children aged 10 to 17 are committing more serious crimes. They are being sentenced to custody at rates not seen in a decade. And specific categories of youth offending have exploded. Sexual offenses committed by children rose 47% in a single year. That is not a typo. 47%, the highest level recorded since 2018. Violence against the person offenses, already the largest category, climbed another 5% and now account for over a third of all proven youth crime. Custodial sentences for children jumped 21%, the first year-on-year increase in 10 years. This is not just statistical noise. This is a system under strain and a generation slipping through the cracks. Why does this matter now, and why should it feel different from years past? Because for over a decade, youth crime in England trended downward. Ministers pointed to falling arrest numbers. Youth offending services celebrated declining first-time entrants. The narrative was progress. But that trajectory has reversed. Proven offenses by children rose for the second consecutive year, climbing 4% to approximately 35,600. Sentencing occasions increased 8%. Stop and searches involving children remain disproportionately high, with over 103,000 conducted in the year ending March 2024. The most troubling shift is in severity. Acquisitive crimes, theft, robbery, burglary, are all rising again. Theft offenses surged 32%. Robbery climbed 12%. Burglary rose 8%. These are not minor infractions. These are predatory crimes that destabilize communities and erode public safety. And the system designed to intervene early is failing to keep pace. The average time from offense to court completion now stands at 225 days, the highest on record. That is over 7 months of limbo for victims, for offenders, and for justice itself. Let us walk through how we arrived here, because this crisis did not appear overnight. In the years following 2014, youth crime figures plummeted. Arrests fell by nearly half. Proven offenses dropped 61% over a decade. It looked like progress, and in many ways it was. Diversion programs expanded. Youth cautions replaced court action. Children were being kept out of the justice system altogether. But beneath that success, warning signs were building. Court delays grew longer. Serious violence among younger cohorts began ticking upward. In London, data from mid-2025 showed that children aged 10 to 14 were involved in a rising share of serious offenses. What was once dominated by 15 to 17-year-olds now increasingly involved younger children. By 2022, the trend reversed. First-time entrants rose for the first time in years. Arrests stabilized rather than continuing to fall. Then in 2023 and 2024, the increases became undeniable. Proven offenses, sentencing occasions, custodial sentences, all climbing. The core allegations here are not directed at children. They are directed at a system that has repeatedly failed to address root causes. Youth services have been gutted. Funding for early intervention programs collapsed during austerity. Youth clubs closed. Mental health support for children became inaccessible. Poverty rates among children rose, and with them, the conditions that breed crime. The government promised investment. Labor's manifesto in 2024 emphasized tackling neighborhood crime and serious youth violence. Yet the infrastructure to deliver that promise remains threadbare. Youth offending teams are under-resourced. Diversion schemes that worked are now overwhelmed. And there is a darker allegation simmering beneath the surface. That Westminster is more interested in appearing tough on crime than actually preventing it. That the 21% jump in custodial sentences for children is not evidence of rising danger, but of political expediency. Lock them up, show strength, avoid the harder conversation about why 10-year-olds are committing sexual offenses at record rates. The political pressure from these figures is mounting, and it is coming from all sides. MPs in constituencies with rising youth crime are being hammered by constituents who feel unsafe. Community leaders are demanding action, not more statistics. Police forces are stretched, dealing with stop and search controversies while facing criticism for not doing enough to curb youth violence. Within Parliament, the debate is fracturing along predictable lines. The right demands harsher sentences, more police powers, a return to discipline. The left argues for investment in services, education, mental health. Both sides accuse the other of ignoring reality. But the real pressure is on labor. They took power in 2024 with promises to restore safety and rebuild community trust. These statistics suggest the opposite is happening. Youth crime is not falling. It is rising, and the public will not tolerate excuses. Party unity is fragile on this issue. Backbenchers in urban seats are nervous. They know their voters see the headlines about knife crime, about child offenders, about rising burglary rates. They know the conservatives will weaponize every data point. To understand the gravity of this moment, we must compare it to past crises in youth justice. In the early 2000s, Tony Blair's government faced a similar reckoning. Youth crime was high, public fear was intense, and the response was the creation of youth offending teams and the introduction of ASBOs. It worked for a time because it combined enforcement with support. In 2011, riots across England exposed deep failures in youth engagement and policing. The response included billions in funding cuts to youth services, a decision many criminologists now view as catastrophic. Today's crisis is different. It is not riots. It is a slow, grinding increase in serious offenses committed by children who are falling through every safety net. It is sexual violence by minors rising nearly 50% in a year. It is custody rates climbing while reoffending rates also rise. The historical lesson is clear. Punitive responses alone do not work. Cuts to services worsen outcomes, and delays in justice breed cynicism and repeat offending. The consequences of these trends are immediate and long-term, and they will define British society for years to come. Short-term, communities face rising insecurity. Parents fear for their children's safety. Shops and homes become targets for young offenders emboldened by slow justice. Trust in police, already fragile, erodes further. Politically, Labour faces a credibility crisis. They campaigned on restoring order and rebuilding public services. If youth crime continues to rise, if court delays worsen, if custodial sentences keep climbing without reducing reoffending, voters will punish them. Long-term, the damage is generational. Children entering custody at higher rates are more likely to reoffend, more likely to become lifelong offenders. The 32.5% reoffending rate for children, which rose again in the latest year, is a damning indictment of the system's failure to rehabilitate. And there is an electoral consequence. If Labour cannot deliver safety, the Conservatives will hammer them relentlessly. If the next election cycle is dominated by crime statistics showing youth offending at crisis levels, Labour's majority is vulnerable. This is not hypothetical. This is the arithmetic of political survival. Beyond party politics, this crisis strikes at the heart of democratic legitimacy and public trust. When the state cannot protect children from becoming offenders or protect communities from youth crime, citizens question the social contract. They ask what they are paying for. They ask why their streets feel less safe despite promises of reform. The rise in serious sexual offenses by children is particularly corrosive. It suggests a failure not just of policing or sentencing, but of safeguarding, education, and family support. It raises uncomfortable questions about online exploitation, access to harmful content, and the breakdown of social norms. And when justice takes 225 days from offense to completion, victims lose faith. They see offenders walk free for months. They see cases collapse. They see the system is broken, and they are not wrong. This is how democracies lose legitimacy, not through coups or corruption, but through the slow erosion of basic functions. Safety, justice, protection of the vulnerable. If the state cannot keep children from committing crimes at rising rates, if it cannot process those crimes efficiently, if it cannot prevent reoffending, then the state is failing its most fundamental obligation. The most damaging revelation in these statistics is not any single figure. It is the pattern. Sexual offenses by children, up 47%. Custodial sentences, up 21%. Proven offenses, rising for 2 straight years. Court delays, at record highs. Reoffending rates, climbing. Every metric that should improve is worsening. Every intervention that should work is strained or failing. And the demographic breakdown exposes deeper injustices. Black children remain vastly overrepresented across nearly every stage of the youth justice system. They account for 11% of children cautioned or sentenced, despite making up just 6% of the 10 to 17 population. Mixed-race children face similar disparity. This is not just a youth crime crisis. It is a systemic failure that disproportionately punishes certain communities while failing to address the conditions that produce offending in the first place. The public reaction has been swift. Advocacy groups are demanding immediate investment in youth services. Police unions are calling for more resources. Victims groups are demanding faster justice. But the government response has been muted. Statements about tough action, promises of review, no concrete funding commitments, no urgency. Here is the warning, and it should be heard clearly across Westminster. Youth crime in England is not a passing problem. It is a structural failure decades in the making, accelerated by austerity, neglect, and political cowardice. If these trends continue, if sexual offenses by children keep rising, if custody becomes the default response without rehabilitation, if court delays stretch beyond 7 months, the consequences will be severe. Communities will fracture, public trust will collapse, reoffending will spiral, and a generation of children will be lost to a justice system that punishes but does not save. Labor has a narrow window to act. They must invest in early intervention, fund youth services, speed up court processes, and address the root causes of offending, poverty, exclusion, trauma. If they fail, the next set of statistics will be worse, and the political price will be devastating. This is not just about numbers. It is about children whose lives hang in the balance. It is about communities that deserve safety. It is about a democracy that must prove it can still function. The data is out. The crisis is real. The question now is whether anyone in power has the courage to do what is necessary.